In the sweltering heat of an Oregon summer in 1999, a group of high school seniors left the quiet town of Forest Grove for what was meant to be a memorable graduation trip. They had no idea it would be the last time their names appeared on any attendance sheet known to mankind. 27 students. 1 yellow school bus. 1 substitute driver. And then, nothing. No warning. No witnesses. No signal. No accident ever reported. No GPS coordinates. No surveillance footage. Just a small town. And 27 families. Left behind in a silence so absolute, it felt like the woods themselves had swallowed time. The story soon turned into legend. Locals began to call it the class that the forest took. Children whispered it by the campfire. Adults avoided mentioning it aloud. As if speaking the name might awaken something still hiding among the trees. For 22 years, the disappearance of the class of '99 remained buried in the closed-case archives. Not because it had been solved, but because no one dared reopen it. Until one day, in June 2021, a lone hiker wandered off an old trail. A place where maps faded, GPS went mute. And no human footprints had touched the earth in decades. There, half devoured by vines and moss, he stumbled upon a rusted shape, barely distinguishable from the wilderness around it. A school bus. Still yellow, but now more relic than vehicle. A monument to a world that had moved on, leaving something behind. Inside, moldy yearbooks, torn backpacks, shattered graduation caps, and human bones. But that wasn't the most chilling discovery. 3 days later, a gaunt man walked into the Bend Police Department. His eyes wild, his body frail, his steps unsteady, like someone who had been dragged through darkness for 2 decades. In a cracked whisper, he said, "My name is Jared Fields. Class of 1999. We weren't lost. We didn't run. We were chosen. And the ones who refused were sacrificed." This wasn't a missing persons case. This wasn't a rumor. This wasn't a town legend anymore. This was a confession. From the only one who ever came back. From the nightmare the forest kept hidden for 22 years. Part 1, The Missing File of 1999. Forest Grove, a small town tucked away on the outskirts of Oregon. The kind of place where everyone knows your name. Where football medals hang proudly on diner walls, and everything moves slowly, peacefully, forgettably. In May of 1999, the town buzzed with graduation excitement. The senior class of Forest Grove High School, 27 students, was preparing for the trip they had dreamed of for years. A final camping adventure deep within the Rogue River, Siskiyou National Forest. A farewell to adolescence. A promise of freedom before college life began. And none of them knew. They were about to become a legend no one wanted to remember. The faces that would never grow old. Lacey Monroe, valedictorian, student body president, daughter of the mayor. Behind her perfect smile were panic attacks and locked bathroom doors. Jared Fields, the class documentarian. He called the trip My Blair Witch, but funnier. Tyrese Hall, the football star with a full-ride scholarship, and a fear that his best years had already passed at 18. Emily Thompson, quiet, observant, always sketching faces of classmates, and forests no one had ever seen. 27 individuals. Different, but strangely bonded. A group the town believed was going places. And they did go. No one expected they would never return. The final ride. On the morning of June 5, 1999, the students gathered at the school parking lot. Bus number 57, bright yellow, waited. Their usual driver had called in sick. Harold Griggs, a substitute, had taken his place. Someone filmed it, students laughing, waving goodbye, holding up cassette players, blasting "Good Riddance" by Green Day. They thought it was just a goodbye to high school. But it was a farewell to the world. The bus departed at 9:16 a.m. After that, nothing. The last call. At 6:41 p.m., Rachel McClure's mother received a voicemail. In the background, laughter. A voice yelling, "Turn it off." Then silence. No goodbye. No disconnection tone. Just static. 13 seconds. The final recorded sound from the class of 1999. The desperate search. When the bus failed to arrive at the campsite, most assumed they'd gotten lost. But the Rogue River Forest is not a park. It spans 1.8 million acres, some of which have never seen a human footprint. Search and rescue began immediately. Helicopters combed the skies. Search dogs sniffed through brush and ravines. Volunteers scoured maps and trails. No tire tracks. No cell pings. No radio calls. No broken branches. No torn clothing. Not even a single shoe. It was as if 27 people had been erased from reality. Clues, but nothing that made sense. A week later, a fisherman found a disposable camera, half buried in mud. The film inside? Gone. Removed. 10 days after that, the Callahan family received an unmarked letter. No return address. Just 5 haunting words. "We're okay. Please stop looking." Handwriting analysts said it resembled Trevor Callahan's. But not quite. Too smooth. Too controlled. As if copied. No one believed it. But no one could bring themselves to throw it away. Grief without graves. Forest Grove High School erected a bronze memorial for the 27 missing students. Every June, 27 candles are lit. Teachers grew older. But the names on the plaque never aged. Some parents never moved away. They kept their children's rooms untouched. Beds made. Desks clean. Lights on. "I don't need answers," one mother said. "I just want to hear her voice again." Just once. The disappearance of the class of 1999 was never solved. It had no ending. It was filed away under "unexplained." Not because it was closed. But because no one knew where to begin. And yet, 22 years later, the forest that took them opened its mouth again. Part 2, the 2021 Forest Discovery. Rogue River, Siskiyou. June 2021. Exactly 22 years since school bus number 57 rolled out of Forest Grove, and vanished into the trees. Travis Milner, a retired firefighter, chose that cloudy day to explore a part of the forest he had never visited before. He wasn't searching for anything. Just a stretch of untouched trail, a place unspoiled by tourists and time. But that forest, which had remained silent for over 2 decades, whispered back that day. A faint yellow in the stillness. Amid vines twisted like veins of an ancient heartwood, a faint yellow glow caught his eye. Travis paused. Instinct pulled him forward as he parted layers of ferns thick like curtains of time. And then, he saw it. A school bus. Corroded to the point of collapse. Its frame buckled. Wheels sunk halfway into the soil. Windows cracked and fogged with moss. The number 57, barely visible, etched like a memory into rusted metal. It didn't look like a vehicle. It looked like a memory, buried alive, and accidentally awakened. A door into the past. The front door was welded shut with age and rot. Travis pried it open with a crowbar. Each creak like a scream in the stillness of history. A stench hit him. Damp decay, mildew, and something else. Something like blood, dried decades ago. I've pulled bodies from fire. I've seen mangled wrecks on highways. But I've never stepped into anything like that bus. Travis later testified. Inside. Seats torn apart, blanketed in green moss. Backpacks, still bearing name tags. A cassette player, graduation caps. A Forest Grove High School jacket, hanging askew like time had paused mid-movement. Everything was coated in dust, untouched, unspoiled. Like fear had stopped the clock. Bones among the luggage. At the very back, beneath collapsed bags and twisted steel. A fragment of white bone. Travis called the authorities. And in that moment, a 22-year-old gate swung open. Police. Forensics. Anthropologists. Reporters. They descended on the site like bees to a hive cracked open. The area was locked down within a 1.5 kilometers radius. Investigators combed every inch of soil. Every thread. Every memory embedded in dust. Inside that bus, 17 sets of human remains. Confirmed through dental records and DNA. They were the missing students of Forest Grove. And at long last, they had been found. But not in the way anyone had hoped. Emily's sketches. Beneath the driver's seat, stuffed inside a mold-eaten backpack, they found a handmade paper folder, nearly disintegrated. Inside, charcoal and pencil sketches, signed at the corner, Emily T. Emily Thompson, the quiet girl who drew forests no one recognized. Her body, still missing. Images from beyond understanding. A circle of masked figures standing around a bonfire. A tree bleeding, its crimson sap forming unknown symbols on the earth. A school bus, surrounded by tall faceless entities. And behind the cracked windshield, a mask, staring out. Blank. Empty. Watching. No captions. No notes. Only images. Like memories too dark to be spoken. The chill of justice. The bus had been found in a location no road reached. There were no tire tracks. No ranger stations nearby. No signs of dragging or transport. It hadn't driven there. It had been placed there. And hidden. 17 bodies confirmed. 10 still missing. The case, once legend, was now horrifyingly real. But that only raised more impossible questions. If this was just an accident, why the masks? If it was murder, why was no one ever caught? And if someone survived, why did they stay silent for 22 years? Part 3, The Survivor Returns, Jared Fields. June 10, 2021. A man walked into the Bend Police Department in Oregon. His face, ashen gray. His frame, so gaunt, it seemed his coat hung from a skeleton. Eyes sunken deep, as if sleep had abandoned him for years. And his voice. Like wind seeping through the cracks of an ancient tomb. My name is Jared Fields. Class of 1999. No one believed him. Then no one dared doubt. At first, officers assumed he was mentally unstable. They ran fingerprints. They took blood samples. They checked every federal database. Everything matched. Perfectly. Jared Fields, missing since 1999, was alive. Shaking. Breathing. And carrying memories the town had buried long ago, but could never truly forget. I wasn't supposed to come back. Jared refused to sit down. He stood near the exit, back to the wall. Every time someone moved, his eyes snapped toward them. Sharp, instinctive, like a cornered animal. They're still watching, he whispered. They know I escaped. I was never meant to come back. He never said who they were. He either couldn't, or wouldn't, name them. I saw it, he murmured. I saw something humans aren't supposed to see. His story didn't unfold. It broke loose like fever. Jared didn't tell his story. He relived it. Each sentence was not narrative. It was recollection. As if the memories weren't leaving him, but pulling him backward into the dark. The bus broke down deep in the forest. No signal. No road back. Then, they came. A group of people in gray robes, faces obscured. They didn't greet us. They only said, "We are the chosen. And now, so are you." They had no weapons. But none of us resisted. Not because we were threatened, but because of something in their eyes. The eyes of those who had seen the end of the world, and decided not to return. A place without time. Jared described what he called the settlement. No birds. No clocks. Only a bell that rang at strange intervals, always on time, but with no known timekeeper. They slept in rotating shifts. Ate on schedule. Sat cross-legged for hours in circles of stone. They called it purification. No one was allowed to use real names. You couldn't mention your hometown. Or your family. Or school. The past was a sin. And anyone who remembered, didn't stay long. Meals of forgetting. The food, tasted off. Not spoiled. Just, wrong. We weren't hungry. We weren't tired. We just, dreamed. Every night. The same dream for all of us. A circle. A tree bleeding into the soil. Faceless masks. A voice whispering, from the earth itself. The ones who resisted. Some students began to push back. They asked questions. Who are we? Why are we here? And the answer was always the same. You are the old. And the old must be made new. Then. They vanished. No one spoke of them again. No one asked. Jared remembered the screams. Distant, from deep within the trees. Like someone being torn from their own body. Escape in the dark. I ran. Alone. In 2006. No map. No moonlight. Just the sound of my heart. And the wind through dead branches, like fingernails scraping down my spine. For 15 years, Jared kept silent. Not out of shame. But out of fear. I thought if I stayed quiet, if I vanished into the world, they would forget me. But when the bus was found, Jared knew. They never forgot. And now, I have to speak. Even if it kills me. Part 4, a divided truth, belief, doubt, and denial. There's a truth about tragedy. It doesn't always end in death. Sometimes, death is only the beginning. Of fractures that run deeper than grief. And after Jared Field spoke his truth, Forest Grove began to crumble. Not with fire or violence. But like a wall eaten from the inside by unseen rot. Two worlds, the believers and the broken. When Jared stepped into the light, carrying a story torn straight from the black heart of the woods, Forest Grove split in two. On one side, those who clung to his story like a lifeline. On the other, those who couldn't accept a reality that defied all human reason. I believe every word he said. No one could invent details like that, not with eyes like his. Irene Monroe, mother of Lacey, who still makes her daughter's bed every morning. I can't accept it. If Jared survived, why didn't my son? Mr. Delaney, father of Matthew, the class valedictorian. The media, from applause to accusation. Jared's first interview made headlines in 5 major outlets within a week. Survivor returns from the dead. Oregon forest cult, myth or reality. But the praise was short-lived. Within days, the tide shifted. No bodies linked to any cult. No sign of a hidden settlement. No second witness. Jared became a national oddity. pulled from obscurity and paraded through screens and columns. Some called him the lone survivor. Others called him a deranged liar, even suggesting he murdered his classmates for fame. The memoir that set fires, We Were Chosen. 2 months later, Jared released a memoir. It wasn't a biography. It was a confession. Each chapter a fragment. Raw, bleak, and unplaceable. No names. No locations. Just emotion. Cold, hollow, and faceless. You can bury memories, Jared wrote. But the smell of wet soil mixed with blood never leaves your lungs. The book sold over 1 million copies in 1 month. And with each one sold, another argument ignited. In kitchens, classrooms, cafes, across town. A community imploding from within. Some former teachers refused to comment, then quietly left town. A group of younger alumni formed the 99 Watchers, devoted to investigating similar disappearances. Some families built home altars. Others filed legal action against Jared, accusing him of inciting mass psychological distress. He didn't kill them. But he couldn't save them either. One mother, speaking at a public hearing. Protection, or imprisonment. After drawings from Emily's recovered file were leaked to the press, Jared was placed under a special witness protection program. His location became a secret. No phone. No internet. No contact with the outside world. We don't know who the threat is anymore, said an Oregon State Police spokesperson. What's in the forest, or what fear is doing to this town? Grief has lost its name. For parents who lost children, Jared's truth became a new form of torture. Not because they didn't believe him, but because if they did, their children had died in a way they could never bear to imagine. I could have handled an accident. I could have mourned a fall off a cliff. But don't tell me my child was used in a ritual. One father hung his daughter's portrait on the wall. Beneath it a plaque engraved with, "She was not a sacrifice. She was someone." Belief never died in Forest Grove. But it had changed. Warped into something unrecognizable. Twisted like a face distorted in water deep within the woods. And Forest Grove, once a warm and ordinary town, now existed only as a scar. Slowly spreading across the map of a nation still pretending not to feel it. Part 5, Has the Nightmare Truly Ended? A class vanished. One man returned. And a town, once thought to be healing, now slides quietly back into the abyss of questions without answers. The bus that shouldn't exist. Bus number 57 now sits inside a locked warehouse, wrapped tightly in layers of moisture-proof tarp. No one is allowed near it. No journalists permitted. No photos taken. Authorities call it sensitive evidence. Locals call it the tomb of memory. A relic that shouldn't exist, but can't be destroyed. Jared Fields, the flame that won't go out. No one knows where Jared is. But whispers remain. Some say he still returns, wearing a hood, standing silently for hours before the memorial wall etched with 27 names. They say he doesn't speak. He leaves only small notes. Sometimes, a reproduction of Emily's sketch. Sometimes, just a trembling sentence. They never left. They're just waiting for the next children. The forest never sleeps. The Rogue River, Siskiyou, is now lined with warning signs. Ranger stations have installed hidden cameras. And still, locals whisper. Some nights, they say, the woods sing, in human voices. One camper claimed he saw an orange glow deep within the trees. Like fire, but without smoke. Without the crackle. A child once said he heard a lullaby, in a language no one recognized. It sounded human, but it didn't breathe. No one confirmed it. But no one dared deny it either. The questions that refused to heal. If Jared told the truth, what happened in those 22 years? Why was he the only one to survive? If Jared lied, why do the drawings match? Why does his fear have such a shape, a face, and bones? And if no one is right, and no one is wrong, then perhaps we are living in a world where truth no longer exists. Only endurance. An ending without closure. No arrests. No culprits. No real graves. Only a wall of names. Bedrooms frozen in time. And a hollowness that spreads like fog. Invisible, but suffocating. Some believe the forest took them. Some believe Jared is the last of them. Some believe it's still happening. With different names. In different places. Because evil doesn't always wear a face. Sometimes it's the silence itself. The empty space you thought you'd escaped. Until it stares back at you. From the mirror. And you, watching this story. Do you believe Jared Fields? Do you believe that class was chosen? Do you believe something waits in the Oregon woods? Or do you believe that the nightmare ends when we wake up? If so, have you ever truly woken up?